everybody, welcome to 360 Coaching with Premier Teaching and Learning. Today, I have the person here, Josh, having one, again, let me try that again. Britton, Josh Britton. I got to get that in my, hello, welcome to 360 Coaching with Premier Teaching and Learning. Today, I have Josh Britton with me.
Hello.
Josh has so much to offer. He is going to present for us today, but this is the person that created Get More Math. So you guys are lucky you get to meet this person. So to tell you a little bit more about Josh, the first version of Get More Math was created in 2005. So he has been doing this for a very long time now. Continuously used and redefined and improved, especially for you people out there, the math teachers. Get More Math has developed into a multi-dimensional and powerful tool for math teachers everywhere across the globe. And so Josh, which we have him here, is the creator of GMM, Get More Math. He loves teaching kids to think critically just about mathematics. So every year since he started as a math teacher in 1996, he loved experimenting with best practices for teaching and teaching algebra and pre-algebra. He started developing Get More Math to help leverage his time in the classroom and to ensure that all kids, regardless of aptitude, were able to grow and learn through math skills. So welcome.
Well, thank you, Cassandra. Shall I take it from here?
Sure.
That is quite the intro. I feel just lifted up and ready to go. Our topic in this session is going to be one that if you have anything to do with mathematics, and I'm sure almost all of you do, is very familiar with, and that is long-term retention. So you already know the issue. Students, maybe they learn a concept and a skill and it seems to go in one ear, right? But then by 3 days later, 4 days later, you give a quiz, and what do you find out? It's already gone out the other ear. So the question I would like to address somewhat is, how do you make it stick? How do you make sure that kids get to the end of the school year and they remember content from September and October and November? And not because you're cramming it back in their heads, but because they actually know it. They know it cold. So that's what we want to talk about. And to talk about it, I like to tell my own story of my first year of teaching when I did not have good strategies for this issue. So I got into teaching not because I love math, but because I love kids. And I wanted to teach needy kids, kids who really struggled. And that first year, way back when, I went in because I loved those kids. They were 14-year-olds. I was trying to teach them algebra. They had failed math 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. And now I was trying to help make a difference at 9th grade. It's not too late, right? And I'd love to tell you it was a great year because like those kids responded. If you care about kids, I mean, I don't care what tactics you have and how thoughtful you are about the mathematics, just if you care, right? They respond to that relational outreach, that love, and that's got to be at the core. So my kids would actually start paying attention. They started getting the work done. They even passed the unit tests. Ooh. So like I said, I'd love to tell you it was a wonderful year, but then came the day when I gave my very first final exam. My first cumulative test, and over half my kids failed it, and didn't just fail, they failed miserably. So maybe you saw that coming. I did not. As a first-year teacher, that was a complete surprise. Like I had taught them the material, and I didn't just teach it, they tested on it and passed the tests. And here, like I was giving them, review materials. I knew it was going to be a disaster right near the end because they'd look at the review materials and say, we never learned this. It's like, what? What happened? It was in your head a few months ago. So it was a painful and very disappointing experience because I had given everything I had, and now you know what was going to happen. Those kids were going to go to the next math class, the ones that the school system moved on. And they were going to have to spend, the ones that passed the test, I should say, they were going to have to spend the first 6 weeks, 8 weeks relearning everything all over again. And thus the cycle repeats itself. So the question is, again, how do you make it stick? What can we do differently so that kids have a long-term retention of what they're acquiring? All those hard-won gains, let's retain those. So the talk is called Retain the Gains. All right. Well, again, if you have to do with math education, I think you already know some good answers to my question. How do you make it stick? I bet you have strategies. I bet you have distinct thoughts on this matter, because this is what math teachers do. They figure out answers to this question. So I'm going to tell you 3, but really it's the third one that I'll focus on. I can't let the other 2 go. So it took me 20 years of wrestling and experimenting and trying things and failing sometimes to come up with these 3 cores. They're not going to surprise you. Number 1, teach concepts over process. So when I was a first-year teacher, you know what I did? I was like, how do you solve an equation? Step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. Step 3. And I did that with like every lesson. So all math was a series of steps to take. And actually some of my kids really liked that, because it was like they didn't have to think, they just go through the steps. But really I had much better long-term attention over the years as I started doing more and more conceptual approaches. Let's get kids to understand the underlying ideas and how they link. Number 2, student discovery over teacher delivery, right? You want the kids' brains to have to do the work to figure the things out. You don't just tell them the slope formula, then you've ruined it. You standing on the side of complete understanding have delivered to them all nice and neat and tied up a little formula, which they then use but don't understand. Yeah. But if you have to figure that out, if they have to come up with it, it takes longer, but now they understand it. Mm-hmm. So that's number 2, student discovery over teacher delivery. And number 3, this is the topic for the rest of the talk, is mixed review every day. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that as we go. So just hold on to that thought, mixed review every day. You'll understand what I mean as I explore it.
Okay.
So let me just go into that number 3. I'm going to start with what I did that didn't work, and then how I introduced mixed review every day and what a difference that made. So here's me in my first year, all right? Typical day, that's a pie chart right there. I'm about to fill it in with what I did in a typical class. I was an algebra teacher in high school, so I had periods, right? And in one period, I spent a lot of my time with a lesson.
Yeah.
And as the years went on, my lessons got much better. Kids were way more engaged. Kids were discovering content and learning concepts. And what do you think I did with the last slice? Any guesses?
Practice, maybe?
Absolutely. Have you seen this before?
Oh, no.
So, yes. So, you learn something new, and then I need some independent practice. I don't want you walking out that door until you prove to me you get it. That sounds good, right? Okay. I'm setting you up.
Okay. I'm like, I think so. But no, that is typically how, when we walk in the classrooms, what's continuously going on now is what are the exit tickets that we have put in place to make
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yep.
So I'm with you.
That's what I'm talking about. And that's good. I'm all for it. We need to make sure kids learn the new material. And the next day, here's a typical unit. Now I'm zooming out in time. Day 2, lesson practice. Day 3, lesson practice. It just keeps happening, right? Yeah. But notice we're always learning something new and ensuring that the kids learn that new thing. Well, by the end of the unit, we have a special day. You see that question mark there? Any guesses as to what I'm going to do at the end of a unit?
Probably assess.
Probably so. And thus, the day before the test, what must we do?
Cram and reflect and practice.
Well, it's funny, you used the C word there. A lot of people, when they answer this question, they say review. But Cassandra, you're a realist, I think. It sounds like. And then, of course, after the test, we've handed the test back. We have some kind of slice of a day I'm showing here where the kids you're trying to get them to learn from their mistakes. All right. So what you see on the screen is what I did my first year of teaching. And I already told you, long term, it didn't work. And actually, it's what my teachers had, I'm going to call it, done to me when I was a kid. This is the way it goes in American math education. And it took me years of like, wait, why isn't this working? It kind of worked for me, and I'm a math guy. Like, this works for me, but it didn't work for my students. Well, I'm going to call it a reality check. We're going to go through here. We're going to start by analyzing 2 spots where what I thought was happening wasn't what was happening. So review and learning from your mistakes. Let's start with review. If you were to look at me as a first-year teacher that day before the test, my kids are trying to get ready to pass the test. I need the kids to pass the test. It's all about uploading all this content, shoving it back in their heads, games, dry erase boards, worksheets. They've already forgotten the stuff from the first 2 days. The content from day 7 and day 8, they've already if you're an algebra teacher, you'll get this. When they go to graph x equals 1, they graph y equals 1 and vice versa. Like it's all, so we unscramble it, we shove it in their heads, all about passing the test.
Yeah.
And maybe they do. How meaningful is that though, right?
Yeah.
And then, so first of all, you already kind of stole my thunder here. I don't call it review anymore. I call it cram, because that's what's happening. It's not this lovely word review, which is what most of us use. It's the reality is cram. They take the test, and then the day, you hand the test back and you're like, let's go over number 7. And they're like, why?
Right.
Because in their mind, something else already happened, and we have conditioned them for this data. It's not their fault, it's ours. I call it, well, let me lead into it. You can almost hear it. They're handing the test and they're walking out the door. You can hear the sound. It's the flush.
Oh.
Like, why would they remember anything? The test is over. Either they passed or they didn't. Fate has spoken. It's a done deal.
Yeah.
So I call what we all do, what many of us do, I call it the cram and flush. And it doesn't have really good prospects for long-term retention. As we know, if we've taught for very long, we discover the hard way. Let's zoom out to an entire year of cramming and flushing. So here's a grid. Each grid item is going to be 1 unit. So there's going to be a big test at the end in the corner, maybe a final exam or state standardized test. So there's our first unit, right? New material, new material, new material, cram, test, flush. And maybe the kids passed the test. So that new teacher, Josh, me, back in the day, was like, oh, good, everything's good. And I push ahead to the second unit. Little do I know, the territory we covered before is fading away. And as I push ahead and push ahead and push ahead, all the old units, they're fading, or even by the time you get to the middle of the year, near the end of the year, those first units, they're not just faded, they're gone.
Yeah, I totally agree. Especially like if you don't use it again, or if it's not consistent in practice, or something is not cyclical. No, I totally agree.
You're on the money. It's and so when we get to the, what do we do about this? What you're saying, some kind of cyclical review, some kind of integrated use, something to keep them hooked in. So, a couple days before the big test, now you cram for 3 days. Or I've been to schools, and I'm not making this up, where they cram for weeks for the, some state standardized test.
If we do it all the time with test prep.
Yeah, and I'm not making it up. It happens.
Yeah.
And what's really happening there is, I already referenced this before. You hand out materials, and the kids are like, I've never seen this. And I always used to think they were like whiners or like kind of ne'er-do-wells who were kind of pushing back and didn't want to do the work. But I realized over time, some kids really meant what they said. Like it really, like, look at my screen, see all those blank units? It's not in their brain. They're not making it up. They actually haven't seen it. Like, so by this time, sometimes people think from this presentation that I think that cramming is the problem, but it's not. It's a symptom. It's a desperate strategy for teachers who are up against the ropes and students, and they have to get somebody to pass a test.
Mm-hmm.
And since that somebody hasn't learned the math, then we have to do something so they'll pass the test. But the problem is actually that the kids don't know the math. That's the problem. Or to put it another way, they haven't retained the math. Mm-hmm. So what a shame. We did all that work. We went through all those steps, all those miles. We gained all that territory only to lose it. And now to have to cram just to get some meaningless test results. All right, that's enough about the problem. Let's talk about what to do differently. So I'm saying, as you know by now, this needs improvement. Let's change what we do with our minutes, our precious classroom minutes, which are so much more precious right now than they've ever been before. I advocate a serious investment in reallocating minutes. So I'm going to click the button, and it's a simple idea. Slice the pie differently. Let's do something that's more brain friendly. Like, what adult would expect to read a book that's 250 pages of nonfiction history? And after having read a chapter, set it down, next day read a chapter, set it down, and eventually be done, and then have somebody give them a test in a few weeks and know everything that they read. Yeah. Like, we all know that doesn't work. Brains don't work that way. Brains are brilliant at sloughing off unneeded information. Mm-hmm. And we've trained our kids that prior content is unneeded information. So let's be more brain friendly. Let's retrain kids' brains. Let's teach them to expect that actually they need to know all the content. And a way to do that is to reslice the pie and have a third slice, which I called earlier, and now I'm going to get into it more, mixed review. What do I mean by that? Well, first of all, I don't mean like 5 minutes of a warm-up or something. I mean a serious investment on a daily basis of time. What's that time dedicated to? Well, long-term retention. That's the objective. And to do that, you need review sessions that are cumulative in nature, right? So it's not like you just review something from last week or a month ago. It's a little bit of everything. That's what I mean by mixed. Something from 4 months ago, something from yesterday. And then ideally, why not individualized? So, you were absent last week, Cassandra. So let's make sure you get some content from where you weren't here. Or maybe you were here last week, but we still know you're not that great at it. Maybe I was here, I'm great at that thing, but the thing from a month ago, I haven't seen it for a whole month. I was good at it then, but maybe I'm not anymore. Let's bring some of that in. So ideally, each kid would get a mix of content from the past addressing her needs.
So I have a quick question.
Go for it.
This mixed review, so are you taking like previous assessments, or are you taking just this assessment and say, oh, they got number 4 wrong, number 4 relates to multiplication is incorrect, I need to review and practice with multiplication with the student? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So the goal would be to, because the kids are doing this every day, right? A chunk of mixed review every day. And as the teacher is progressing through the year, they're adding more and more content. They're saying, oh, this should be part of the set of problems. This should be part of it. So the set of problems is getting bigger. The kids are doing the sets of problems. The choices the program would make, and because we haven't really talked about the program yet, but the choices that my application would make when delivering a session of mixed review would all be based on the student's data trail. So it would say, it kind of like weighs different issues. The issue of how long has it been since you did one of these? The longer it's been, the more weight it gets, because we're like, wow, you used to be good at this, but it's been a month.
Okay.
Or maybe you've done it a ton and we know you're not good at it.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're quite good at it and we think, actually we kind of, psychology is important here. We put easy ones in there sometimes because we don't want it just to be this unceasing, like, here's all the stuff you're bad at. It really needs to be mixed. So that's where the mix comes from. So it's not from the most recent assessment. It's from the entire data trail of the entire year. Every result you ever have gets put into this. This is the thing that took me 15 years to make. This big crunchy algorithm, then it comes out, you should work on this right now. Like, of all the different things, you need this, I need this, she needs that.
Got it.
So whenever I give this presentation, you kind of already know there's an app at the end of it. When teachers hear, like, I think you should have all 140 of your kids have an individualized practice session every day for, let's call it 20 minutes because you have a 60-minute class. I mean, how are you supposed to do that? And people can't. Before I made the program, I was trying to make worksheets and note cards and tickets out the door. But it was enough to have a lesson and get the new content mastered. How could I deal with this issue? So in my philosophy, that's where a computer can come in. And in our case, we call our system for mixed review, Get More Math. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to be really clear. It can provide focused practice on new material. That's a decent thing a computer can do. But then it's beating heart, the thing that really is powerful, and the thing that really changed my practices was mixed review. See the gray area on my pie chart on my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to get on my soapbox here. I really don't like computers for instruction. So since I made this, it has 0 instruction. We believe that the best instructor is a human being. Mm-hmm. I made it to use in my classroom. I wasn't trying to get out of the part that I like the most, which is helping kids discover, fostering dialogue, presenting problems, calibrating difficult, all the cool stuff you could do as a teacher.
Yeah, so I envision this. This is amazing. So I'm envisioning, okay, now we're doing math. Let me do a mini lesson, and then we'll do applications to where students get access to the mixed review practice.
Mhm.
Some I'm working individually with a specific concept.
Yes.
It's kind of
Yes. You know, if we have time, I can go into more of the details, but what you just said is you're quickly starting to think about how it could be used in the classroom. Absolutely. You teach the lesson. And then maybe you keep some kids with you because they're kind of having a little trouble and you don't think they're ready for independent practice, which is my purple slice there. You're like, you know, you could just keep working with me personally. Get those dry erase. But some kids get their device out and start doing independent practice. Some kids do the independent practice so well that within 10 minutes, they've proven they understand today's lesson. They are automatically, the computer just goes, that's enough of that. Here's your mixed review. And they start doing mixed reviews. So now you have kids that are working with you. You have kids that are working on the focus practice. You have kids that are working on the mixed review. It's wonderful.
Man, I mean, differentiate instruction.
Absolutely.
Power. So yeah.
It's like two tiers of differentiation because it's differentiated in terms of what kids are doing what, and then the kids, what they're getting on the screen is differentiated, especially the mixed review part, right? Because they're what they receive is based on their data trail. You are getting it really fast. I want to go back to our typical unit and watch kind of some of the cool implications. So you've gotten the basic idea. What our conversation we've had so far covers my thought. I want mixed review in every class. Get More Math can help provide that. That's simple. But watch some cool other stuff. I love this. Okay, so every day now there's a new slice. I teach something new, we practice it, but there's mixed review. Another day, another day. So we're not just pushing ahead all the time. We're investing in the past. Did you notice like there's less time spent on lessons? You might think, wait, how am I going to have time to teach everything? But do you just think of how many times you have to spend half the lesson redoing something from a month ago because they don't know it anymore. It's incredible. If the kids actually keep knowing the math, you get so many efficiencies out of that. But wait, there's more. So remember at the end of the unit, there's a test. There's still a test. But here comes the first like, what moment, okay? The day before the test, the day when I used to have kids cram. I'd like to show you by the end of my teaching. Now this was after 20 years of learning and growing. Mm-hmm. This is what it looked like. Ready? Do you have a drum roll there, Cassandra?
Another day.
It's just another day. So here's the sentence, ready? And it's going to take me a couple slides to fully show this. But by the end of my teaching, we never studied for a test.
Wow.
Never. Why would we study for a test? The test was to find out what they know, not what we sort of shoved back into their heads.
Yeah.
So again, it takes a little bit to explain it. First of all, my tests began to be cumulative. So here's my first unit. You might think, well, it's your first unit. All you can test, your first unit is the first unit, right? Because that's all you know so far. Actually, all I would test is the first half of the unit. So I stopped testing the stuff that I had just taught, which is a complete inversion. I used to think, well, I just taught it. I have to test it now. No. I don't want to test what I just taught. I want to test everything else. I'll show you what that means. Like, let's go into a full year again. Okay, now we're doing mixed review every day for a full year. Here's our first unit. I just showed that, but here's where it starts getting interesting. Here's my second unit. Okay, see how the orange dot is a little bigger? It's because that test is going to cover half of this unit and all of that unit. So what am I doing to my kids' brains? I'm teaching them via accountability here. Like, I care. Like that other unit, you can't just cram it in and lose it. It's going to be on the test. And my tests were mixed. Like it wasn't just like, here's all this stuff from chapter 1. Here's all this. No. It was just a little bit of everything. And I kept doing that. So here's like after 4 units, here's halfway through the year. So here's the beautiful thing. My kids would walk in, say, this would be like early February. I would give them a big test covering everything we'd ever learned in algebra without any studying, review, cram, what, and they did fine. Yeah, because they knew the mathematics. Now, why did they know the math? Here's the last big test, which covers a little bit of everything from the year. And, well, actually, I should push ahead just a little bit more. And you know that big test, the final exam, oh no, all the cramming. My kids, the last couple of years I taught, did not study a single day for the final exam.
Mm.
They just came to school and took it.
Mm.
How did that work, right? And it wasn't the big test, not for my kids. For my kids, it was just another test. It was the last test. And you know what it did? It tested everything they knew. And you know what? They expected that because that's what all my tests did. So, you know, just another day taking a test in my classroom. Now, why did this all work? How could my kids just come in and understand the math? Why didn't they have to study? It's because of this slide right here.
The time.
Every day we spent a big chunk. I mean, it was an investment. A huge chunk of our time was spent on reviewing prior content in a spiral, mixed, individualized way using that program, the Get More Math system. And that's why my kids knew the math, because I was continually bringing them back to it. So they had some of that stuff down cold.
Wow.
So,
imagine if we could do college like this and every subject like this.
I've only written Get More Math. Currently covers 3rd grade through geometry. I'm sorry.
Really amazing to where now we can, I mean, why the test, the anxiety, the stress, how students are overwhelmed, even the social emotional learning aspect of it, we can just think about why are we adding these layers or these, you know, just areas of stress for our students when we can provide the scaffold every day to give them what they need, to where the test is kind of like, it's another day. So yeah.
So it was that the cumulative test part is this sort of bonus to this presentation, right? If you could just start doing mixed review on a regular basis, and whether you use Get More Math or not, this isn't really about my particular system. It's about the idea. Like, why don't we all do it? Well, I guess because it's a lot of work. And also because sometimes I think, you know, well, I have to cover all the standards. I don't have 180 days and I've got, you know, all of these standards and all of these chapters. And my pitch is always, well, you know, if you quote cover them, but then the kids don't know them at the end of the year, like how useful is that? Now I realize teachers have to face kind of there's difficult imperatives. You know, you get from the top, you get like, you've got to cover, or, oh, I hate this word. Have you heard this one? Expose. Like the kid needs exposure to all of this. What's the point of that? Like, it doesn't make any difference other than maybe to alienate them and frustrate them. They're like, oh, here's a bunch of stuff I don't understand. So anyway, this is the big slide because it's like, this is the vision. Can you work that into every day and see what happens? I usually finish by just going back to that same pattern. Remember, I told you that the first year, over half my kids failed the final exam. So my last year of teaching, now I'm the lead teacher. I'm making the final exam, right? So it's like thick and it covers everything and it's fair, but it's tough. And my kids, remember, they just walk in and take it. And they're your like ne'er-do-wells. They're the kids who came to high school expecting to hate math. Well, the vast majority of my kids would get A's and B's just because they knew the math. And a handful of my kids would scrape by. And this isn't magic. You know, I taught for 20 years and I gave it my heart and soul, and I still had kids fail my class because they didn't know the math for various reasons. But these kinds of results really, they stemmed from those 3 big changes, right? Teaching to concepts, student discovery, and then finally what's on my slide here, a serious ongoing investment into individualized mixed review. So that's the big idea.
That is mind-blowing. Like, we should implement this at the college level as well.
Absolutely. It's widely applicable, right? It's not a middle school math thing. This idea is, and it's simple, right? I mean, it's the idea is simple. The idea is simple. Making it happen, doing it well. Oh man, it's a lot of work.
Wow. So Josh, you are in several places. Let me just say that. So tell us a little bit just where you are now. I know you're definitely in Indiana where I am. So like, where is this program?
Oh, the program is basically USA, like it's being used across the 50 states. We have a brick and mortar office in California. I'm located in southeastern Pennsylvania.
So like this is already being implemented in schools. So some of your
Absolutely.
results, I'm pretty sure, are amazing.
Yes, yes. You know, it's kind of like what do you say with results may vary or something? You know, uh, we've seen teachers just really run with it and do incredibly well. We've seen teachers kind of get the same thing they always get in terms of results. And we'll have teachers where their kids are like, we love this. And other teachers like, our kids don't like it. And it's fascinating to me. It's all about the implementation. It's not magic, right? It takes a lot of work. You have to roll up your sleeves and really learn how to build it. And it doesn't just happen overnight, right? It's not sort of like well, just use this system and everything will be fine.
Yeah, sounds great.
So, but yes, we've seen some phenomenal results in my own practices. My kids consistently, massively outperformed. We have a Pennsylvania standardized algebra test, and they tell you at the end of the school year what similar kids to your kids got. So they sort of say, you know, let's take a 3rd to 8th grade perspective on a particular kid. Find all the other kids in Pennsylvania have the same trajectory. Then find what they got on their 9th grade test. And then find what your kid got on the 9th grade test. If your kid got the same score, in Pennsylvania, we call that a growth of 0. Which is, it communicates poorly because it means average, right? But to some people, it's like, what? 0 growth? That's terrible. Didn't you grow? But anyway, it means average growth. So all of my students would have like growth of, the numbers aren't super meaningful maybe, but like 40 or 50 or 60, they almost always, wildly outperformed sort of similar kids. So really good test results. The state would always say, here's how many kids we think should have passed according to our data. And usually about double that amount of kids would pass in my system. So yeah, good results.
This is amazing. I am very excited. So make sure you follow Get More Math. We'll definitely provide the link, and he has definitely a bonus for you. So check that link out.
Yeah. Should I mention, like, we give a free 1-year trial to this? Like, I haven't shown the program. I thought the idea is more important than the program, right? So all the, how do you make an account, and how do you get kids into it, and how do you find the problems, and all of that stuff, I've avoided that because I thought clarity and vision is more important. But yeah, we give a free 1-year trial. So if you were to start it now, you and every other teacher in your building can use it unlimited with as many students as you want till July of 2021.
You guys are so lucky. I want to try it. I'm going to try it with my kids. Make sure you implement this and just practice and try it out. Because yes, he is located. There's a lot of schools here in the Indiana area that has access to Get More Math that's actually using this in the schools. So I am very excited. Thank you so much, Josh, for sharing that with us.
You're welcome. I should say we also cover all Indiana standards from grades 4 through geometry, and we're just about done with 3rd grade. So shortly we'll have 3rd grade in too. Wow.
Okay. Well, you heard it here. You guys get access. So until next time, Josh, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Cassandra.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.